Hi, this is Gary from Texas Zone 8B, 9A, according to what chart you look at. Just going to do a quick walkthrough of the garden. I've been busy, been out with my wife at the hospital for the last 3 weeks, so kind of been in and out mostly, so I haven't really gotten hardly anything planted. I did plant the potatoes, trying some fall potatoes. 5 of them came up okay. I got a couple more coming up. We'll see how they do. They don't get full sun, they get pretty good sun, but it's just something I'm going to try again. I haven't had a whole lot of success with fall potatoes, or fall tomatoes for that matter, but potatoes especially. But you know, I'm going to try it again, see what happens. Up over here we have the Okinawa spinach, and since no one's here to eat it, it has really went crazy. It's starting to get its purple color back to it since the temperature's cooled down. What I'll do is, once it gets a little bit colder, before we get the first freeze, I will cut this back and root some of these. Now, last year, you know, we got down to low teens and it survived. But you don't want to, you do have a chance of losing it because it will freeze back, go to the ground. It should come back from the roots. But I do want to have some, and they're easy to keep. I mean, you don't have to keep them. I keep them up on the porch. They get sun a little bit during the winter time. I'm just trying to get them to survive the winter. So I have some extras if they don't survive. If the main plant doesn't survive the winter time. Here's the lemongrass. First year I've grown lemongrass. It's not in the best pot in the world, but it's gone crazy. We haven't harvested any because my wife hadn't been here. She's the one that drinks the teas. So it's, you know, it's doing really well. Just got to figure out exactly what we want to do with it. Over here we've got the oregano, and it's one that pretty much died out because it didn't get watered, and it's starting to come back. The thyme's up over there. It's doing about the same as it has. On the ginger, it's early in the morning. It's doing really well now that the temperature's cooled off. These did get blown over, or the cat got up here and laid in it, one of the two. So some of these come up out of the ground. I'm just going to leave it like it is. I don't know how big a harvest you're going to have, but they are growing some. And it's kind of like potatoes. You don't really know what you got till you dig them up, but they are looking good. So that's good. Now, one thing, I'm sorry, I'm going to make you turn around again. I did want to show y'all this. I think I might mention another video. This is a sweet lemon that I planted back last fall. And it basically was just this stick. It stayed green. You know, some of the other ones died out on me. It stayed green the whole time. And all of a sudden, about a month ago, it decided to put out a sprout. So it's starting to grow. I like these right here because I can see if it's rooted down, and we can see roots down here, so we know it's got roots. It's just coming at a bad time, and the fact we're fixing to go into winter. But you know, I'll baby it along. It should survive. But it just goes to show, if you're doing root cuttings and the stuff's still green, especially if you see this green here, it hasn't dried up, stick with it. Same thing with your figs. I've had figs that have sat not that long, but they've sat and they did not, you know, I would make the cuttings in the fall or early winter and they wouldn't do anything, and then about June or so, all of a sudden they start growing. So if you're doing root cuttings, don't give up on them until they die. And usually you can tell they start withering up and stuff, so you can tell on that part. All the basils are still growing, looking good. They're not having any real issues with them. This here is my Cherry of the Rio Grande, and it's looking better. It's struggled somewhat. Probably haven't been watered like it needs to be. I do need to go out and water all this today, but before I leave to go back to the hospital. And hopefully my wife will be getting out this week. These are some of the other herbs that we're growing. I'll tell you what's this called, son?
Pomegranate?
Huh?
I don't know.
That's what you're eating in there.
Pomegranate?
Huh?
Pomegranate.
Pomegranate's doing well. It's growing. I put plenty of fertilizer in this one, so it's had a lot of fertilizer. It's growing really good. It's not in the best, like I said. Right now it's in the shade, and it's about, I'll say it's early in the morning, it's 10 o'clock. But it would get afternoon sun. I probably need to put it where it's in more sunlight, but it's doing all right. Here's one of the gingers that I put out late. I had it in a little, well, I had it in this pot here for a long time. I was going to take it to a talk that I was going to give to and give it away, and then I couldn't make the talk, so I just shoved it in there to see what's going to happen. Let's see if it does produce anything. The variegated peppers doing really, doing well. I have not harvested, as you can see, but it's looked really nice, and we did about more ornamental than for the peppers themselves. Beside it's another one of the figs that's decided to put on figs again. These figs will never make, but all a fig is, by the way, is a bloom, so it's just putting on blooms. And it's not the right time of year to put them on, but there's nothing you can do about it. It's lost its leaves, because see, this leaf here is all diseased up. They'll look like that, they'll fall off, and then they'll start putting on new leaves. So for this one, it's still diseased up, hasn't lost all of its leaves, but that's a natural process in the fall. In the summer and fall of the year, they're going to do this. They're going to get that disease. They all do it, and there's not anything that I know of that helps much on it. These are my plum trees that I've got growing in the pots. Chickasaw plums. It's early in the morning, so I'm not thinking real great. This is the flower that I don't know the name of it, that's done really well. You can see right now this bed is really bad about drying out, and I may try to add some clay in it just because it's losing water. Because I watered this last week. Well, probably last Monday.
Something like that.
Yeah, and it's already, you can tell this even the buckwheat is starting to show signs of stress, not of lack of water. So it ought to last a whole week. So it's just dry. It's just draining too well. Anyway, let's go ahead and walk up over on the other side. Okay, and this here is my lychee tree that I bought earlier this year, put in a 5-gallon pot. One thing you want to be careful on these things is anytime they got something tied around them. If you come back over here, I just noticed this here was tied around it, and you need to cut these off because they will girdle that tree a little bit and hurt it. I just didn't notice it. This is still tied to this because it's pretty floppy of a tree, so I haven't, you want to try to get them bulked up to where they're not going to fall over. At the same time, you don't want to put too much on it. I'm going to go and take this one off here, and so that's just something you do before it's all over with. You need to take all these supports off because that's just going to make the tree weaker over time. But I don't want it to be so weak that it blows over, so it's kind of watch it as it goes into wintertime. I'll probably go ahead and pull the rest of those off. This is the Gramachamba that hasn't not produced in the 4 or 5 years that I've had it, and it's had some water stress to it. Didn't get watered really well. This is my cauliflower, broccoli. If you're not here every day on this stuff and it's the seedlings, you're just not gonna. They all came. Most of them came up, and then we got a rain and they were sitting in that tray, so they got waterlogged. I took them out of the tray. They dried out. I was gone 2 or 3 days, and sometimes that stuff happens. So if you're going to be growing stuff in seedlings pots, you just have to make sure you're there. I have not planted my carrots yet because carrots need to be watered every day, maybe twice a day for the first week to 10, 2 weeks, week to 10 days to start coming up. Because if you don't keep them moist and wet, they will not germinate. So I haven't planted them yet because I'm not been here for a 10 to 14 day period that I can water every day. So I'm not going to sit here and say, okay, I'm going to plant them, I'm going to water them. I'm going to hope we get rain during that time, which we haven't because we're in a drought. So once I'm here, I know I'm going to be here for a couple of weeks, then I'll plant my carrots. I'll water them every day. Probably not going to do the broccoli this year. Just kind of ran out of time on it. But anyway, I did plant, this is the other ginger plant that I put in a pot earlier, and it's got a lot of shoots on it. You can see how well it does. I'm not sure on it. And I'm all the way around here. And this here's the sweet lemon tree that I let fruit up. And you may say, well, you should take fruits off on this size tree, and I agree with you, except for the fact I've got a really big tree. and it didn't produce any fruit because it got the winter damage from last year. So I produced a little bit of fruit. This is my backup plant in case something happens to the other ones. I'm also going to be putting it in a bigger pot. Grasshopper. Yeah, ADHD sometime. But I don't worry about grasshoppers here because we don't get them very bad. But West Texas, they're a problem. And it's strange to me, in West Texas, you got grasshoppers everywhere. Grasshoppers, crickets, everything. You come out here, we got mosquitoes everywhere, but we never really have a problem with grasshoppers. We don't have a problem with crickets. Now, there is a mole cricket that I have some problems with. Just a regular old brown cricket, you don't see very many of them. And I think it's because we get so many predators because it's such a lush environment that, you know, stuff tends to be small. And you don't get the pressure for the grasshoppers, because grasshoppers like they have to have a certain dry spell or it hurts their eggs when they lay their eggs. So when I came out here, I thought grasshoppers would be a lot worse of a problem, and really I don't even worry about grasshoppers because something's going to eat them before they get too big. This here's my loquat tree, and I planted it in a pot because loquats will produce fruit. They're fixing to bloom now. You have to carry that fruit all the way through the winter time, and then next spring it produces the fruit early. Well, that's all great and good unless you get any temperatures below about from 26 to 28 degrees will kill the blooms or the fruit, either one. So I'm leaving this in the pot. I'll probably pot it up to a bigger, one of those bigger pots that I've got, and that way I get some fruit off of it. It's never going to produce as much as a big tree, but at least I get something. First year I planted loquats, we had a mild winter. It made the crop. I planted everything in the ground so it'd be easier, and from the last 3 years they've lost all their fruit because of cold weather. There's another one of that's another one of the fig trees. It's got some disease on it, but you see the new stuff coming out. This here's new growth that's come on it. You don't want to put so much fertilizer in that you get this new growth that it's up this tall. You want to keep it about like this. As you see, it's put on fruit. And it's the wrong time of the year, but if this is the summer, that's the way you'd want it to look. Sometimes you'll get these big old long, we're like here, we got big old, because this thing was about this tall when we started out. We got big old long growth, didn't get any figs on it. So you want to fertilize them to the point that they're growing, but they're not being super aggressive, because again, they're a bloom. And because we eat the blooms, it never produces fruit on a fig. That's actually the bloom that you're eating. And so on a fig, you don't want that tree to be growing so aggressively that it's just growing vegetatively. You want some growth, but not too much growth. So, and the way you get growth on it is fertilizer. If you put too much nitrogen on it, you can get too much growth. A lot of times people say you need to put more phosphorus, but usually what happens is you put a lower nitrogen fertilizer on when you're putting no phosphorus on. Adding additional phosphorus to a plant does not make it bloom more if it doesn't need more phosphorus. So that's my nutrient management tip for today. And this here, the Grow Young Greens Kohler really likes this, and it's a sweet leaf that you just pull these here off like that. You put that in your salad, and it has a really sweet flavor to it. I don't do salads. I know it sounds strange because all these salad plants. My wife does, and she likes putting them in there. That's one of hers. She really enjoys it. It's not frost hardy. It does not come back once the frost kills it. So what I'll need to do is go back here and either buy some more at the nursery in Houston, or I'll make some cuttings and just bring it in like I do the Okinawa spinach. Anyway, let's go back into the other part of the. Okay, over here we got some of the tropical fruit. This is a Longan tree that makes the Longan fruit. It does have some scab or something on it that I need to probably spray on it, but it is growing well. That's a growth shoot that's coming up here, and so we know we got the proper fertility on it. I won't add more fertilizer because I'm getting the growth on it. What I don't want to do is put more growth on it, more fertilizer to get more growth, and then you get this tree so big you can't get it in the garage when it gets really cold. I'm trying to keep it about this size, so I don't want to get too much growth on it. The lychee tree over here is doing well. It's also starting to throw on some growth on it. What's happened, we've had some really hot temperatures, and now that those temperatures are broke, everything's starting to grow again. And this one's starting to get too big, but that's just the problem you get whenever you're growing in pots. I guess I could trim it back down, but it's still still will fit in the garage, so I'm not worried yet, but next year I may have problems with that. Again, my peach tree keeps blooming out, and I don't like that, but there's nothing you can do to stop it, so I got little peaches. The pomelo is starting to turn. It's not going to be long before they're going to be ready. So it looks like the ones down there that broke the branch, we'll get those 3 off of it. So, you know, they're looking nice and firm, and they're starting to get heavy. That's one thing you'll notice when they start getting, and that's a small one, they do get heavier, and sometimes that's when they break the branches, because when they start off, they're not as heavy. And that's another indication they're starting to get right. This here is my Myers lemon. Now you can actually see the lemons, so it's put on a lot of lemons this year. Done well. It's an older tree. I think this is some of the fertilizer. When I put the fertilizer down, it burnt the leaves. That's not a disease. And it does like a lot of nitrogen. And it does really great. Meyer lemon does a really good job. If you want to put one in a pot, it does really well as long as you can keep it outside for most of the year. It does not like being brought in for 2 or 3 months at a time. So where I'm at, I mean, if I get a cold spell, it's only going to last 2 or 3 days. So I can bring it in the bring it in the garage. It's going to protect it, and then once the cold snaps over, I bring it back out. But if you're in zone 7 or something and you want to grow a lemon, really Myers, from what I've been told through different forums and stuff, they're not your best plant. They're not your best plant. And there comes our black kitty cat for Halloween. It's October 21st, so 10 days away. This here's another one of the mandarins, and these things, with satsumas and mandarins, you can get them a little early, even though before they're completely turned. And we'll see if this is ready or not. Like I say, I should have took one from one that was overloaded instead of one that didn't. And one thing that concerns me is it's not peeling real easy. They're ready. It's not quite as sweet as you get later on, but only bad thing about this sucker is it's seedy. But it tastes better than what you get in the store. You know, once you get in the store, they're gonna pick them, they're gonna sit, and I'm real seedy. But when you're picking these things, don't pick them all at one time. I've had some people I've seen that see a tree like this and say, oh, it's ready to pick, and they'll pick every one of them and put them on the cabinet. And I'm going, okay, within 2 to 3 days, they're going to start deteriorating. So if you get one like this, that's got a lot of seeds. If you get one like this, pick what you want to eat that day. Come out here, pick you a couple, go back in and eat them, leave them on the tree. They'll get a little sweeter as the winter goes along. You want to pick them early, that's, you know, they're still good, but there's no reason to pick them all at one time and then not eat them for, you know, if you got 2 weeks of fruit you're going to eat, just pick them every day. Don't try to pick a bunch of fruit and leave them on the counter, because your fruit starts deteriorating and doesn't do as good, and it's going to taste like the store-bought fruit. So now, should I prune some of these off? Yeah, but I got a big family, so they tend to eat all that. So far I haven't got any broken limbs, so that's good. And then I'll start picking these off. And this one's called Clementine Mandarin. Actually, it really loaded up. Done a really good job of putting on fruit this year. The good thing about putting them in pots, though, is like I say, we had a really hard winter last year, but they were sitting inside the garage when we had that hard winter, and it didn't receive any damage. This here is my pomelo, the other pomelo, Chandler, and it's got the really big one. And as I mentioned on the last video, why does it get really big? Because it doesn't have any fruit as the other one does. This is only 2 fruits this whole tree has, and it's a pretty good sized fruit, so it can put all of its energy into putting a big fruit. And it's the same variety as the other one. The other mandarin that I have is a pumpkin. It's the best tasting of the ones that I've got. it doesn't have as many fruit, and it's going to be later. So, you know, these aren't ready yet. They're way too green. No use eating them. But we do have some on it. So, you know, they're doing all right. You know, I do got the blueberries over there. They're looking pretty ragged, but, you know, they're also pretty old. So this one has some dieback. They're getting something on them. I'm not sure what it is. But I'm not going to say. I've gotten, these things are probably 10 years old and been in the pot for a long time. So, you know, if they don't make it, they don't make it. But, you know, we'll see. Last year they suffered some damage. I think I left these out, if I remember right, on the cold spell. But I'm getting too old to remember that. Got more figs over here, and I'm gonna be paring back on the figs because my big fig eater moved off. So, but this is the Papa John's. He's a really good fig. It's done really well for us, and got some other ones. And like I say, the good thing on figs and where it gets you on figs, you can walk in here, like on this tree here, you can cut, you know, one of these sticks off of it, stick it in the ground. Down south anyway, sticking around, it's probably going to root and produce fruit. So, like I say, they've got tricked. They're all starting to put on fruit. What I'll do, I'll leave them on there, and then when the freeze happens, I'll go pop them all off. You know, there's just, they don't have enough time to make it, but, you know, that's just the way they go. Now let's go up and we'll go into the garden area of the place.
Okay.
Okay, this back in the raised bed where we got the fall tomatoes. Here's my problem on fall tomatoes. Okay, now they're blooming. We got blooms all over the place. I do got some fruit on them down here. Nice sized little fruit. Problem is, it's October 21st. And it's probably going to take these things 45 to 60 days for them things before they're going to ripen up the fruit on these blooms. So that's going to put us, you know, it's October 15th. Then you're going to have November. It's back because it's October. It's October. It's October 21st, so it's going to be November 21st in a month. You know, it takes about 35 days from the time they bloom until the time they make the fruit. That's going to put us almost into December. So if we get early frost or early freeze of any kind, it's going to kill these plants. And that's the problem I have with fall. Now some of these may make it. I mean, these do have some fruits on it, and the fruits are already there. May go ahead and make it. But it's just hard on me to get it to where I can get the things to set the fruit. You know, because no matter how early you plant them, you know, these were putting on blooms. It was too hot, so they were losing their blooms. And then when it gets cool enough for them to start setting their blooms, I just don't seem to have enough time to be able to make a crop. Now, I may make it this year, I don't know. But, you know, they look really good, and we'll see. This here's one of my peppers. It's jalapeno peppers. This is a cauliflower that grew from last spring, and it's still alive today, and it's still got little stupid bugs on it. But we do have an eggplant. It's got an eggplant on it. It started producing again. So if you can keep these eggplants or peppers alive, they will start producing again in the fall. And you need to do a better job getting chickens out of here because they're starting to dig up the stuff again. But anyway, these peppers need to be picked. I've got a bag to pick those. And like I say, we got damage from chickens. Blackberries are doing okay. I do need to trellis them up, and I'll probably be saying that next spring. I need to trellis them up. I do want to come up around here. I haven't shown these much because it's hard to get over here. There is a stump there. These have struggled this year. They had some freeze damage from last fall. I did cover them up during the winter from last winter. I did get some freeze damage, but I did cover them up with mulch and stuff, so they did survive. And been trying to get some size on them and been fertilizing them but when it gets really hot, nothing grows. So the only problem I'm having thinking about now, I've got one here. It's the Miho variety. The one over here, which has been crowded out, and it was growing really good because it's, you know, it's up in here, but now it's, you know, but it's starting to look better. This one here is the blood orange that we got growing here, and it's actually showed a lot of, you know, grip and vigor on it. And then our biggest one is Mr. Mac variety. It was the biggest to start with. It's got a lot of new growth on it. Here's the problem that I might have. I've tried to push these a little bit in the winter, in the summertime, put fertilizer on a little later than I should. I'm happy getting the flush of growth right now. That's fine. And the problem is citrus grows with a flush of growth on them. So they're going to sit there, they won't do anything, and all of a sudden they start throwing out, you know, this growth that's going to happen over about a 2-week period of time. When they do that, they lose all their coat hardiness. So most people, the experts say, never fertilize, or you know, their recommendation is do not fertilize after July 1st, because what you're trying to do is trying to get that plant, fertilize it July 1st, let it use up all that nitrogen, and at the end of it, you know, you'll be okay. My problem is I did fertilize a little bit later. We didn't get any rain. It didn't utilize the nitrogen. The only concern I have now is I don't want this thing flushing in December and January, but it might. But we'll just see. I was trying to put a little bit of growth on it, just trying to get it big enough where it can actually make something. But we're going to see if I messed up or not, because, you know, it's just one of those things. I haven't put any fertilizer on here lately because of it, but we're just going to have to see. And it might or might not receive fridge damage. I will, you know, if it gets cold weather like we did last time, I will throw that. I got some wire over here, and I'll throw this over it, and I'll throw a blanket over it, and then I'll fill it in with leaves and everything else. That's why you see all these leaves here on the bottom that they were left over from the mulch that I put around them. And cover everything up as much as you can. If you're going to cover them, you need to go all the way to the ground with it, because you're trying to use the ground for the heat from the ground to warm up the plants. The other thing is, do not use plastic, because even where that plastic touches, it's going to freeze. You're going to have freeze damage on your plants. And plastic does not insulate very well at all either. So you also have that problem. Okay, so let's go up over to the other orange tree. Okay, here's where we got the sweet potatoes. We dug up the one row here, and talking to my son, we got about a dozen sweet potatoes out of it. So, okay, it's been a bad year, and they didn't do as well. Next year I'm going to plant them earlier. You know, that's just it. We're going to dig these others too. We just ain't got around to doing it yet, or he hasn't got around to doing it yet. He's been having to take up the slack when I've been gone. This here is the N33 navel orange. It is a very sweet orange. It is also not very cold tolerant. I am really surprised we kept this thing alive, because we went through 2 hard freezes with it. I have covered it both times. I knew it was, you know, susceptible to cold. You come over here, you can see here it's been also flushing, also putting out growth. That's good. You want it to do that. I'm just, you know, this one's going to have to be, I probably may end up having to cut this one almost every year. It can start getting freeze damage when it gets up in the mid to upper 20s, which you hit pretty often. So, you know, that's just, you know, it makes really good oranges. Over here, you look right down here and you see the Bermuda grass is doing really well. For anybody thinking I am being sarcastic. But it's true, it does really well. The only good thing about seeing it doing it well is that I guess maybe I do have better fertility than what I'm thinking. This has been the bean plot that has been totally neglected. We have had a lot of hot temperatures and just haven't had the right temperature for it. And also something we need to eat them off, because we had a lot more of them make and they died. And I don't think it's because of I don't know if worms got into them or whatever. But got a few tomatoes, the watermelons just come back from seed. But you know, I'm going to show you all of it, because I think sometimes we think you see some garden channels and they act like everything's great and wonderful and everything works, and then you try stuff and it doesn't. Some years are just bad years, and this has been a bad year. I'm not complaining about that. It may sound like it. I'm not upset with it. Just some years are that way, and you just chalk it up and You know, will I do the same exact thing next year? Yeah, because next year I'll probably work. You know, I've heard one time a guy said, well, I'm not a farmer, but I work with farmers, and they have disasters every year also. And they plant just one crop, or some of them just plant one crop. We got rice people around here plant one crop. Some years they make a bumper crop, the next year they don't. They do everything exactly the same way. So you're going to get that. Over here is a loquat tree. I didn't show the other loquats on the other place, but here's one of the loquat trees. So it's bigger. It is just starting to produce the flowers also. It's a little bit later. And you know, we kept this thing alive because it suffered pretty hard with the drought. We did put the buckets around it, watered it in, and kept it alive, and now it's starting to produce fruit. So if you can keep these fruit trees alive, it's worth it. Why don't you come on down here and we'll kind of finish this thing up. You ain't talking to the camera more, I know. This tree here looks good, but it's all suckers. The main trunk is right here, and if you'll notice, you fold it up, it's dead. So all the main trunk is dead. You've got one or two choices. You can either go back and you can graft onto the existing stuff, or you can cut it down and start over. I'll cut it down and start over because I haven't got into grafting yet. I need to. When I retire, I will do that, but right now I haven't. This tree here, I'm just curious. I think it's that same rootstock though, ain't it? Yeah. This the rootstock is one of the trees that died. I actually had two trees here, I think. I planted one, it died, and I planted another one, and the next freeze killed it. So the bad part about this area is this way's north. And if you look, there's no wind, nothing to stop the wind coming in from the north. Where the other ones were, we've got some trees that kind of block the wind, so that does help with the winter damage. This here's the other one. And when I was talking about putting out the buckets, I put out these buckets, filled them up with water. They got a small hose in the bottom of them, and I put 2 or 3 around it, watered them for a couple of times, and you know, they made it. This one here is also putting out, so you know, we got a lot of blooms this year. If we get a mild winter, we'll make a lot of fruit. If we don't, you'll see this is from last year. They all die and just sit there. So anyway, one more last thing. I'm gonna sound like a preacher. One last thing. But anyway, my jujube trees, this is one of them. They're doing well. They're growing well. They produce some fruit. I don't like the fruit that well. Some people love it, and I would suggest if you're thinking about growing a jujube tree, try to find somebody that's got one, try it for yourself, see if you like it. They do taste better if you pick them in the morning than if you wait till the afternoon, strangely. I guess it's just converting. They're sweeter. I guess they convert to sugars if you pick them in the... Anyway, they say the same thing about corn. You're supposed to pick corn in the morning too if you want sweeter corn. But I don't know, you know. It is what it is. They also have thorns on it. I have poked myself a couple times with this one. You know, this is a smaller jujube tree here. If anybody wanted it, wants to come out and dig it up, I'd give it to them. Because, you know, there's no use having trees in here if you don't like it. There's no use growing fruit if you don't like the fruit. Now, the neighbors seem to like it. And if it didn't have thorns on it, it wasn't suckering so bad, I wouldn't mind helping out neighbors and give it, you know. But when it starts sticking me, I just have the neighbors so far. I am going to sound like a preacher. One more thing. This is almost going to sound like a failure video, but the other thing you have to watch out with on pears, and I've got these resistant pears, but they do get fire blight, and this is fire blight on this one. And I am hoping it doesn't go back into here, because if it goes back in here, it's going to kill the whole tree. But fire blight's been strangely bad for me this year. And I think it's because I fertilized the corn beside it. And because I fertilized the corn, it made the pears. I may have problems here. See that? But so since I fertilized the corn, it made the pears grow fast, and when the pears grow fast, they tend to get fire blight. So just a word of warning, and I never intended for this to be part of the garden when I planted the trees. I planted these pears first, and then I thought, hey, I'm going to expand the garden, and came this way. So that's kind of the cautionary tale, I guess, of be careful if you're around a pear tree. If you're going to be putting out a lot of fertilizer, even the disease-resistant ones, and that's the fire blot's what's the really bad one for pears. It can be a problem. Now, saying that, this tree over here, right beside it, it hasn't suffered much fire blight, but you know, some years fire blight's really bad, some years it's not. And I got another pear over there that's not really bad. But this one, for whatever reason, contracted a fair amount of it. It's called Golden Boy, because I've got, you know, I've actually got a tag that somebody put on it that I've actually kept. I'd like to get one of these kind of tags. But my problem with tags, I either lose them or I have them where they'll be around the tree and then they'll girdle in the tree. But anyway, these trees trying to go in together. Anyway, that's going to be my video. I don't want to be rambling on too long. Thanks for watching, and hopefully next time I'll be a little bit more optimistic about what's going on in the garden. Thank you.